Worktrees? Why didn't you tell me about them? I've been using Git for years and I hadn't even heard of them. The concept of Worktrees has probably been right there underneath my nose the whole time. And now, just in the last week, I've started to play around with them. And I'm really excited about how they might help me to juggle my tasks from day to day. If you bounce around like I do between features, multitasking, doing bug fixes, and then a hotfix even gets thrown into the mix just to keep things spicy. And usually, when this happens, you need to commit or stash whatever you're working on at the time, check out the other branch, then later you have to come back and restore your changes. It's just a bit of a lag, right? It takes time. So, Git Worktrees can allow you to have your main worktree directory on your feature branch, and then you've got all your work in progress there. And then you can simultaneously have additional directories checked out to different branches for working on your bug fixes, reviewing PRs, or whatever it is that you need to do. I'm going to show you how to create work trees now. I'm going to talk about how to manage multiple branches, and then we'll handle some of the gotchas that could pop up along the way as well. So let's start with what Git work trees actually are. Well, Git Worktrees, they allow you to have multiple working directories for the same Git repository, with each one checked out to a different branch, but all sharing the same Git history and configuration. The process of creating subsequent directories is also really quick because you're not having to clone down the full repository again with the full history. And then when you want to close them off and move on to the next task, it's very simple to just remove those work trees and everything that you've committed will still be in the main Git history. So let's dive into an example. Let's just say that you're working on a feature. So I'm on feature branch A and a bug comes up that you have to do a hotfix for. So if I run a Git log right now, you can see that I have my feature A currently, which has had one commit, so it has diverged from my main branch. And I've got a couple of previous hotfixes that I had also done in the last couple of days on my main branch. So somebody comes and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, we've got to get this fixed out really urgently." Well, after I've rolled my eyes and begged them for it to be held back until this sprint, I agree that I'll create a new hotfix for them. So first of all, if I run Git Worktree, this is the core of all of what I'm about to do. By running this, you can see all of the different commands that you can run for a Git Worktree, and you can explore the different features. And if I run for a start Git Worktree list, I can see that even when I'm not using worktrees, I actually technically am. This directory is already a worktree. So the worktree is referenced using its path, and it tells me what the commit and what branch it is actually on. So now we're going to run a Git Worktree add, and I'm going to create a new directory for my hotfix C, and I'm going to use the -b flag and create hotfix C. And now if I go down to the directory that I've just created, and I can run a git log, I can see that I am now on hotfix C. It is at the same place as the branch that I just created feature A. We'll come back to that. But you can see that that full history is here. And as you probably noticed, that was super fast. Now, I've been working in the last week on a larger project where there are a lot more files involved. And even then, I have to say it's very fast to create a new version, a new work tree, and it's definitely faster than cloning down the full repository every time. So now that I'm here, let's have a look at what's in this directory. I'm going to run an ls-ltra, just my habit. Everybody has their own ls command. And I can see that I have this .git file here that I always do, but it's not a directory. You'll see here that it's just a normal file. If I actually cat that file now, which in Linux is to tell me to show me what's in the file, I can see that it just contains a reference back to my original directory and to a folder in there within its .git directory. So this is how it knows where to go to for its Git history. Okay, so now that we've got our new work tree, we can make our changes in it. We could commit our changes. We can either push from this place here, or we could move to our other original main directory and we could push from there eventually when we were ready to. So, one thing to keep in mind in this is that you might have noticed that I created that branch off my feature branch. That's not usually what I want to do. I usually actually want to create a branch for a hotfix off my main branch. So let's resolve that right now. I'm going to come back into my main directory. And this time when I create a new branch, a new work tree, I'm going to instead create hotfix D, and I'm just going to reference branch main. So I'm not using that -B flag to create a new branch. In fact, instead, I'm just going to check it out straight into the main directory. Now, if I come back down into that new directory for hotfix D and I do a git log, I can see that I have created I am currently in the main branch here. The head in this directory is pointing at the main branch. And now I could do a git checkout -B and create my hotfix D branch from here. So this is how I would handle it when I was actually wanting to create a new branch off a different directory. That was one thing that I already came across this week where it occurred to me that when I'm working on a feature and I'm then creating another branch, I don't want to create it off that feature. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so now that we have our branch here on hotfix D, and if I look at my directories, I've got my hotfix C and my hotfix D running along here. And I'm just going to come back into my main directory and I'm going to try and break myself here. I'm going to try and actually check out hotfix D. Because this is a shared history, it knows about it in this directory, but it won't let me because I've already got that branch checked out in another work tree. So one of the first things that I thought of where I know that I could make things messy for myself, it doesn't let me do. The other thing that it will actually prevent me from doing is deleting any branches that are open in another work tree. So if right now I tried to do a branch delete of hotfix D, it prevents me from doing it because it's in use on this other work tree. Great. So a lot of those sort of gatekeeper things are in place for me already. Speaking of deleting work trees, how do we do it? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Let's start with the nice clean way. So if I am actually wanting to clean up my work trees, right now I've got two of these hanging around, and let's just say that I'd already finished with them and I wanted to move on. I can do a Git Worktree, remove, and I can just provide that path and it's gone. And if I run a Git Worktree list now, that other work tree is gone and everything's happy. If I tried to do this for a work tree that did have changes in it that hadn't been committed, it wouldn't allow me to do it. What about deleting things using the operating system to delete them? I mean, you can do that. And I'm sure that there are going to be times where I will. So I'm going to come here now and rm -rf to do it recursively and without asking me. And I'm going to delete that directory. Now, when I come back into my main directory and do a Git Worktree list again, I can see this work tree still exists, but it's prunable. Now, of course, if I had stuff in that branch that I didn't want to lose, I've just lost it. So I need to keep that in mind. But if I had committed my work, then I won't have lost it because that would have been stored back in this main directory's Git tree. So we can now prune this. Git Worktree prune. And now if I run my list again, I'm back to just having the branch that I'm on here. So it's pretty easy to manage those Git work trees along the way. And as you saw before, there are quite a few other features such as moving directories around, locking them, and repairing them. So you can have a play with that sort of stuff yourself. So how messy can this get? Well, let's think first of all about the branch management side of things. Yes, you could get yourself in a little bit of a mess, especially if you choose to have multiple clones of your repository that themselves all have their own work trees. My advice with that would be just don't do it. You don't want to get yourself into a mess with these. I would be constantly cleaning up my old work trees when I'd finished working with them. even more so than I do with branches, because they're also physically taking up space on my hard drive. And if anything happened to my computer, I wouldn't want to think that I had stuff stashed away on different work trees that hadn't been committed and pushed. So I would treat them just like I do branches where I want to push them up to a remote whenever I can. So, what about databases and other things that can have state in your directory? Well, first of all, of course, this is a new directory. It's a fresh checkout of code every time. So, if the first thing that you need to do on a repository is run something like an npm install or a NuGet restore, then you'll still need to do that. And that's a little bit different, of course, to if you're just checking out different branches within the one directory. To me, though, I see benefits in that because every time it's a fresh install. And of course, on my CI CD pipeline, that is the case as well. So I'm more likely to catch any package issues along the way. It also does mean that when I first build it, it's going to take a little bit longer for that first build because it's going to have to do all the package restore and create all of those initial compilation files again. Again, that doesn't take too long though, and it's something that I think would depend on the project. For a lot of my small projects, it's actually going to be negligible. The other thing also is the package versions change anyway between branches, so this will hopefully save me some from some of that package version hell that you can end up in. Now, databases might be a different beast. For me, again, this is all speaking from personal experience. We do a lot of database migrations using tools like Entity Framework, and we already live in that hell of having to roll back and roll forward the database depending on which branch we're working on at a time. And so the same thing is going to apply here. You could also just create a different version of the database for a different branch. So if you are working on especially long-term features, then I would definitely be doing that already. So this is not a new problem for me. I've also started trying to make sure that our sprints involve an initial database migration step, which I do for all of the tickets that we're planning on getting through in a sprint. So that already has helped reduce the amount of rolling back and forth that we have to do when we're going between different tickets. So hopefully, if you can do that within your project, that might help as well. So it's really going to depend on your project, and I would suggest that you just give it a try and see how it goes. It may or may not be a good fit for you. For me, this feature will definitely be a level up in my ability to jump around from task to task. I like to call it multitasking, even though so many life hacks these days claim that you can't do that. I know that I am always jumping between different tickets, doing PRs, wanting to have a look at that code. All of those sort of things will be, this will be a game changer for. The other thing that I think this will be really helpful for is in the last few days of sprint when I am doing a lot of bug fixes, I can certainly see myself jumping between different work trees for that. And as you start to add AI to your flow, using something like Claude Code with Worktrees will become very powerful because you can actually get it to use Worktrees to run multiple tasks in parallel. So I suggest having a look at that as well as a way of leveling your development up. If this was really helpful for you, then please do like the video. I appreciate all the comments about how you use it and your own little life hacks with this sort of thing. And of course, subscribe if you want to hear more from me in future. Thanks.